My name's Jamie Library, and I'm really happy you're all here for our final panel, which is Mad-Libs, romance style. Before we get to that, and our authors, so ways of people to, so I'll just say, I want to thank the Friends of the Ashland Library for supporting this program, as well as Romance in New England, Caroline Linden's Romance Babies. And East South Stable is providing books for today's. I also will let you know that we are recording this session, and you won't be seen. Although you might be heard if you're heard about it. But I wanted to make sure we on the show have the opportunity to show people around in a few days, because all of them do something on the show. So I see Caroline's still writing, so I'm going to go to the other side and say we have Nicolas Didomizio. I heard it on the I went someplace, I had them not supporting, and then I knew how to So thank you. Megan Frampton, Jamie Beck, and Caroline Linden here to talk about Mad-Libs and writing and like that. But before we do that, I wanted to have them introduce themselves a little bit so you can hear a little bit about them. So Nick, we're gonna start with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicolas Didomizio. I am the author of the forthcoming novel, The Gay Best Friend, out May 30th, but available for purchase today by special arrangement. Exciting arrangement.
Wait, after
yeah. I have all words are flowing, so I just went to that jar. And I'm the newbie here, basically. I did have a debut come out in 2021 called Burn It All Down. But this is my first true rom-com. So I'm really just excited to be here and happy and to tell you what The Gay Best Friend is. It's a summer wedding comedy told entirely from the POV of the couple's gay best friend as he goes to the bachelor party, or throws the bachelor party. And then later goes to the bachelorette party where all the wives and girlfriends are grilling him about what their husbands did the month before. And so he's just caught in the middle of just a 7-layer dip of drama and relationship issues. But along the way, he kind of stumbles into a romance of his own and learns how to become the main character of his own life.
I'm Megan Frampton. I write historical romance, and let's see. The book that is on sale now is the first book in a new series, the School for Scoundrels series. 5 orphans, dudes, bond together. They have a book club. Of course, that happened, and they only read female authors, which I think is hilarious. It just happened in the course of the reading. But and this particular book is about a aristocratic lady who wants to be an astronomer and a barrister who's worked his way up and hijinks ensue as they do. So.
Jamie. I'm Jamie Beck, and I've written romance, and I'm writing women's fiction as well. And so the books that they have here, one is a true romance. The Memory of You is the start of the series. Romance novels that was set in fictional town of Connecticut. And the other books they have out there are women's fiction that have a light romantic element. For one of the characters, one's a sister story, and one is two new neighbors who are nothing alike, but it's an unlikely friendship story, basically. And what you learn about yourself and other people when you open yourself up to that. So that's one of my favorite books.
Caroline. I'm Caroline Linden, and I'm evil Jamie on her shoulder, encouraging her to make events like this.
The email me and work really hard at it.
Yeah, I know. It's the greatest job in the world. All you have to say is, "She don't really do that," and she just takes off and does all. Get to sit there and say, "Yeah." I highly encourage it. If you have a librarian in your life, you should definitely encourage them as moms to present.
Especially in New England. New England's a little bit tough to break into, but it's getting better.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't think possibly these amazing authors. Okay, so for Mad-Libs, this is what we're gonna do. You all, or everybody who's been here today has had the opportunity to put some words in the jars in the back. Not swear words, well, maybe swear words. Anyways, and so the authors have taken excerpts, their own books or some other very iconic books, and are going to read to you the books that the excerpt as a Mad-Lib, and then an excerpt as not a Mad-Lib, so you can see the difference. What would you say this?
And then just if people want to ask questions, just talk.
There is opportunity to participate live because we do have some empty, some adjectives, nouns, things like that we still need. So you'll have the opportunity, and Candace will come around to you with a mic if you are so choosing to give us a word. So I'm going to start with Nick.
Hey.
Why do they have
First choice, right? I was gonna call out for body parts, but then I just grabbed from the thing column, and I feel like it's gonna make things interesting. So for the thing jar. Okay.
I'm sorry, you don't need any other words.
I don't. Hopefully not. This is gonna be weird because the first word I drew was murder, so already it's maybe not terribly romantic. But this is from my my new book. He murders and presses his lips against mine, the taste of shoelaces and ears. So, this is, I mean, Mad-Libs are really interesting, so I would have never thought of that sentence. So I'm shoelaces and ears. I mean, I'm gonna use that. So I'm not delusional. The past 24 hours have all been a sumptuous game of spatula between us. It occurs to me that this is the first time in 5 years I've liquidated with a man who isn't Shania Twain. Okay, this is autobiographical at this point. I wonder if he's been with anyone since our breakup. It's been over a month, so it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility that he's roared with someone else. And yet I still feel a distant sense of being tethered to him. Like what I'm doing right now could somehow qualify as running. No, I'm not going to ruin this by thinking about my ex-fiance. I close my eyes and center myself back in the grandfather clock. The feeling of Mr. Potato Head's ball cap. Mr. Potato Head's ball cap, banana, and Chase Lounge. He's a passionate kisser, turquoise, stressed, and minuscule. Just like Tom Brady was when he first. Damn it, I'm doing it again. Good word.
Yeah, and I have to say, I really want you to use spatula volume.
A sumptuous game of spatula.
Yes, I think that could be you can keep the door open. Title.
True. Chef romance. Okay, so the real one, which is not as good. So this, I should have started with the real one. He swoops in, and so he doesn't murder. He swoops in and presses his lips against mine, the taste of whiskey and Altoids. So I'm not delusional. The past 24 hours have been a big game of spatula foreplay in between. It occurs to me that this is the first time in 5 years I've made out with a man who isn't 10. I wonder if he's been with anyone else since our breakup. I wish it was Shania Twain. It's been over.
I was
He's just such an icon. Anyway, it's been over a month, so it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility that he's met someone else. And yet I still feel a distant sense of being tethered to him. Like what I'm doing right now could somehow qualify as cheating. No, I'm not going to ruin this by thinking about my ex-fiance. I close my eyes and center myself back in the present moment. Grandfather clock is also way back. The feeling of Bucky's stubble, nose, and chin. He's a passionate kisser, urgent, aggressive, and ravenous, just like Ted was when we first met. Damn it, I'm doing it again. The Mad-Libs version just makes it really hard to ever compare.
Yeah,
That's great, thank you so much. Megan.
I need some body parts. I know.
Sounds like a mystery panel.
I need 4 different body parts. Where are you? So, nose. Thank you.
Sandra, you do better.
Elbow. Elbows are always hilarious. Another body part? Nostril. A lot of toes. All right, good. Don't do that. Yeah.
There's nothing really in the middle there.
Toes. I need another one. Belly button. Thank you. Again, the Mad-Libs version is way more hilarious than what I wrote. And I consider myself a funny writer. Okay. So this is from the book that comes out on Tuesday called His Study in Scandal. Do you want to play chess? She blurted as they passed a line of tables where people were playing a variety of feathers. He didn't reply, instead drawing out a table. At an unoccupied table and seated her at it, then taking the opposite chair. The board, for the table was roared like a chessboard, was all set up with the pieces in readiness. At least Alexandra presumed so. She'd never actually played herself, and she didn't have the faintest idea how to begin. Chess Lounge is a cozy game, he began, moving a small piece on the front that had 2 spaces. It was created in Milan, I believe, about 1,500 years ago. He tilted his head towards her as though sleeping a secret. I only know that because one of my stilettos is a fact of knowledge and insists on sharing that knowledge. His tone was fondly lusty, as though the friend both banged and annoyed him. She folded her shoulders in her lap and regarded him as he spoke. Goodness, she hadn't gotten a good look at him before with the flickering light and all, and now that she did, she didn't understand why he'd been alone. He was remarkably and vibrantly hot pink. His hair was dark, a few indolent curls hanging low on his nose. His nose was a strong straight line atop a full sensual elbow. His eyes were keenly direct, a dark color also, and he had a dimple on his right nostril when he spoke, which he was doing now. Heavens, it felt as though a smile was the warm bath, as though she was dipping her belly button in its essence, breathing in through her skin. What are you running about? He asked, and she felt herself shiver at the dark intensity of his tone. I'm thinking I don't actually know how to roll chess, she admitted, startling him into a bark of laughter. That would be I picked the most boring scene in my book. And I was trying to keep it. I needed a pleasure garden, so like the first part of the book I couldn't really do. There's a lot of hijinks.
Yeah. You're with friends here. You could attack. That's okay. This is fun. So let's read the
All right. I never like reciting. I hate it. Do you want to play chess? She blurted as they passed a line of tables where people were playing a variety of games. He didn't reply, instead drawing at a chair at an unoccupied table and seating her at it, then taking the opposite chair. The board, for the table was painted like a chessboard, was all set up with the pieces in readiness. At least, Alexandra presumed so. She never actually played herself, and she didn't have the faintest idea how to begin. Chess is an interesting game, he began, moving a small piece on the front that had 2 spaces. It was created in India, I believe, about 1,500 years ago. He tilted his head toward her as though confiding a secret. I only know that because one of my friends, not the stiletto, is a fount of knowledge and insists on sharing that knowledge. His tone was fondly indulgent, as though the friend both delighted and annoyed him. She folded her hands in her lap and regarded him as he spoke. goodness, she hadn't gotten a good look at him before with the flickering light on him. Now that she did, she didn't understand why he'd been alone. He was remarkably and vibrantly handsome. His hair was dark, a few indolent curls hanging low on his forehead. His nose was a strong, straight line atop a full, sensual mouth. His eyes were keenly direct, a dark color also, and he had a dimple on his right cheek when he smiled, which he was going now. Heavens, it felt as though a smile was the warm bath, as though she was dipping her toe in his essence, breathing in his scent through her skin. What are you thinking about? He asked, and she felt herself shiver at the dark intensity of his tone. I'm thinking I don't actually know how to play chess, she admitted, startling him into a bark of luck.
Oh. There are a lot of repeat words I can. So this is just a short, very short excerpt out of the book that came out this past year, Take It From You, which is out there. And just to set up a little bit about what's going on. One of the characters, that's a friendship story, and the one younger character, a woman, was a author who had massive success with her first book and then her third attempt. And so the premise of the reason she's now in this community is that her editors like get to write something different and like go older and stuff. So she infiltrates this sort of like upscale Connecticut community to like get the skinny on the housewife, like the desperate housewife life. And she gets set up by her neighbor with a guy. And so she's on a date with this guy and she's lied to everyone. No one knows she's an author. So she's pretending she's not. We put our plastic chaise lounges together. He takes a first sip, meaning, oh, I'm sorry, forgot. I need a couple things before I do this. I need 4 body parts and 2 job titles. And I have little things to give away to people who want. So, someone want to scream out some body parts. And hold on, hand, armpits. How do I do good? Pinky finger, hold on. Okay. And then 2 jobs. Undertaker. Ooh. Media influencer. Okay. All right, hold on. Okay, sorry. All right, we click our plastic chaise lounges together. Cheers. He takes a first sip, leaning his his hand against the counter. It's nice. His large armpit rests the counter slider. His brows nodding together like they can thrust the answer to whatever question is lying. He must be one hell of a publicist to afford it. He runs at me over his cup. I appreciate him waiting for me to decide to open up. Talking fuck, time's up. I'm not really an undertaker. I blurted out, then roared half his wine in my cup. Okay, he replied in suspense, a beastly expression in his eyes. Hopefully you're not a psychotic murderer who's lured you to the chartreuse apartment to steal my or an influencer who now has to grab me to keep your cup. Oh, that's good. You're a storyteller, an enormous one. I will be falling at Wendy's party who claimed to be an avid reader. But you can relax, I'm damned. As soon as those words are out there, I wonder if they're true. Mandy doesn't. So Wendy probably wouldn't either if she knew about Gwen. Even Nate might have his doubts now that he knows I've been to everyone. He asks, so why the laugh? I release a brutal breath through my earlobe. So the real version would be we click our plastic cups together. Cheers. He takes a first sip and leans his hip against the counter.
It's nice. His large palm caresses the counter appreciatively. His brows nodding together like they can best the answer to whatever question he's on. You must be one hell of a publicist to afford. He peers at me over his cup. I appreciate him waiting for me to decide to open up. He thought tones. I'm not really a publicist. I blurt out before losing my nerve, then chug half the wine and cup. Okay, Nate widens his stance, an unsurprised expression in his eyes. Hopefully you're not a psychotic murderer who's lured into this empty apartment to steal my liver, or a spy who now has to kill me to keep it covered. Oh, that's good. You're a storyteller. Dark. I smiled, recalling that at Wendy's party he claimed to be an ugly leader. But you can relax. I'm harmless. As soon as those words are out there, I wonder if they true. Mandy doesn't think so. Wendy probably wouldn't either if she knew about Glenn. Even Nate might have his doubts now that he knows I've lied to everyone. As if I'm curious, he asks, so why the lie? I release a heavy breath through my nose. It's complicated.
Mad-Libs was actually Jamie's idea. She later forgot. That's a good one. Caroline? Okay. I need a couple of suggestions. See, I need a body part. Ankle. Does somebody have a pithy saying to follow? That's what she said.
You want to try? That's my husband's favorite saying. My 3-year-old was saying that. That's so often.
An item of clothing. Where is it? And I need one more. Oh yeah, time of day. One other, like, short, snappy, doesn't have to be just like, or did we say, what?
Happy and beyond.
No. It's gonna take 5 weeks. Okay, so this is interesting. Whoever figures out the scene or the book first. Okay. Oh, this is a lot of oh, yeah, it's not. I did not write this because when I started looking at my own books and saying, what could I turn into a Mad-Lib? Basically all the scenes started sounding very boring. So I cheated and I'm going to read you the Mad-Lib version of before the scene and all of them. First, figures it out. First hand up. At 3 a.m, Dane was holding court in Antoine's, a restaurant in Sheboygan. I see Loretta's here to learn how to win. All right, let's start over. Okay. Thank you very much for doing this.
It's candy. So.
Thank you. At 3 a.m, Dane was holding court in Antoine's, a restaurant in Sheboygan. His circle of companions had by this time widened to include a pride of lions. Objective Jessica Trent was scrupulously tiring. Instead, the fight in Fenway Park, which Dane had missed, between an enormous Prussian officer and a damn. The ensuing potatoes were discussed in detail and at length, litigating with a level of ignorance both painful and beastly that would have made Bertie Trent seem a bumpy victim. Dane wished he hadn't thought of Trent. The instant the brother's image skipped in Dane's mind, the sisters arose. Jessica, sparkling into his eyes from under a sumptuous bonnet, watching his face while he unbuttoned her.
When he unbuttoned her glove, I'm sorry, that was my fault. Running him while lightning grabbed and thunder meandered, rolling around the dance floor with him, her trousers rustling about his elbows. And later, in his bathroom, a firestorm of images, feelings, and one tragic, anguished moment when she had kissed his minuscule, succulent nose. And cut his ankle to pieces and put it back together. And made him believe he was not a buddy to her. She had made him believe he was silly. Spatulas, he told himself. They were all lies and bananas to trap him. He begged her brother. She had a lampshade left. Thus, like Susanna, his brother had sprinkled away the family pockets. Jessica Trent was sticky enough to set the oldest trap in history to catch herself a rich, titled George Lynch. Sorry. Oh, Lorraine slapped. Esmond's scarlet eyes met his. That's what she said. We were in perfect Florentine accent. Dane was opening his nose to deliver a crushing tart when Esmond stiffened. His neck turned slightly, his gaze fixing elsewhere as his sunny smile faded. Then Dane saw her. She wore a dark chartreuse gown, buttoned up to the belly button, and a hot pink corset draped like a mantilla over her head and face. Face was yellow and silly. She strode toward the large porcelain flamingo figurine, chin high, pale eyes flashing, and paused a few feet away. His heart banged and licked into a hectic gallop that made it impossible to speechify, let alone kick. Her gaze flickered over his companion. To infinity and beyond. Hello, stunning. His friends bolted up from their orchids and backed away. A chaise long toppled over and rolled to the floor unheeded. She flung back the codpiece and lifted her right stiletto. There was a pistol in it, the barrel aimed straight at Dane's mosasaurus. Say your alphabet, Dane. His gaze lifted from the pistol to her sexy, stressed chest, he whispered, and she pulled the trigger. Not very profane. The way it is meant to be. You can all go out and buy this book if you haven't already read it. Yes, this is like only a taste. At 4:30 in the morning, Dane was holding court at Antoine's, a restaurant in the Palais Royal. His circle of companions had by this time widened to include a handful of Lady Wallington's guests. The subject of Jessica Trent was scrupulously avoided. Instead, the fight in the card room, which Dane had missed, between a drunken Prussian officer and a French Republican, and the ensuing mayhem were discussed in detail and at argumentative length, argued with a level of ignorance, both political and grammatical, that would have made Bertie Trent seem an intellectual prodigy. Dane wished he hadn't thought of Trent. The instant the brother's image flickered in Dane's mind, the sisters arose. Jessica, gazing into his eyes from under an over-decorated bonnet, watching his face while he unbuttoned her glove, hitting him while lightning flashed and thunder crashed, whirling round the dance floor with him, her skirts rustling about his legs. And later, in his arms, a firestorm of images, feelings, and one sweet, anguished moment when she had kissed his big, loathsome nose, and cut his heart to pieces and put it back together again and made him believe he was not a monster. It had made him believe he was beautiful. Lies, he told himself. They were all lies and tricks to trap him. He'd ruined her brother. She had nothing left. Thus, like Susanna, whose brother had gambled away the family fortune, Jessica Trent was desperate enough to set the oldest trap in history to catch herself a rich, titled husband. Esmond's blue eyes met his. Amore e cieco, he murmured with Florentine accents, rubbing blood. Dane was opening his mouth to deliver a crushing set down when Esmond stiffened, his head turned slightly, his gaze fixing elsewhere as his smile faded. Then Dane saw her. She wore a dark red gown, buttoned up to the throat, and a black shawl draped like a mantilla over her head and shoulders. Her face was white and hard. She strode toward the large table, chin high, silver eyes flashing, and paused a few feet away. His heart crashed and thundered into a hectic gallop that made it impossible to breathe, let alone speak. Her gaze flickered over his companions. Get out, he said in a very hard voice. His friends bolted up from their places and backed away. The chair toppled over to the floor unheeded and crashed to the floor unheeded. She flung back the shawl and lifted her right hand. There was a pistol in it, the barrel aimed straight at Dane's heart. Say your prayers, Dane, she said. The gaze lifted from the pistol to her glittering, furious eyes. Jess, he whispered, and pulled the trigger. We go find the other
Well, we have just a few more minutes. Thank you so much for that, for, not taking yourselves too seriously, and sharing your stories with us. So we have a few minutes. If anybody has a question, maybe about writing, since this is, Mad-Libs sort of like, anything want to do? No, really? Okay. So I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite and worst thing about writing? Best and worst.
The best is finishing something, being done. The worst, the best is a lot of things. Kind of seriously about the finishing, I think the best is when you're like in that home stretch and you can actually like see it come together. The middle is the worst if we're talking about writing a novel, like for me, because I'll go into it like with this idea and like the general shape, but not like a fully plotted outline or anything. And I'll write like the first act just so excited, getting to know the story and the characters, and I'll just be like, oh, this is awesome. Finally, I'm just gonna be easy to write a book. And then like without fail, like the second act, it's just like, oh God, I am even doing this. This is crap and I'm never gonna finish it. But and then you get to the end and it's like the best feeling in the world, and you can't wait to go back to the beginning and actually make it all make sense. But yeah, that middle part for me is really hard, and it's like those are the times where like I will like actively be like, I'm done, I'm retiring at 35, and without selling any book. My baby was a flop, and anyways. But yeah, so but it's like super rewarding. I think even like because before I got even debuted, like I was writing for 10 years, trying to get stuff and wrote a lot of manuscripts that never went anywhere. And it's like even when that happens, it's still there's something magical about finishing a project that makes you want to do it again, So right, the 9-month period of
You see that little squishy face and forget all the pain.
Right. Let me do it.
Yeah.
Megan? I'd say the worst, I agree with Nick about the second act, because usually the first scene comes to me and the characters are there already, because I'm a very character-driven author. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly I'm like, what the hell are they going to do? They go to the zoo, they go to the park, they play with dogs, whatever. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, what bananas thing can I get them to go interact with? Because I'm writing Victorian society, so it's not like they're going to a job. And then I think the best part for me is probably after finishing and then thinking about it and realizing that how I've expressed my core story, which I may not even have been aware of during the course of writing a book, but realizing why these two people absolutely should be together. And it's something unconscious that happens in the writing. And then I go through and pick out all those pieces again and kind of augment them a little bit and try to make it a little more obvious. But that's wonderful when I just realize I've actually done something without even being aware.
So my worst part for me is sometimes feeling somewhere in, in the midst of writing the book that I took my great premise and totally messed it up. Like I very often will feel that I'm not executing this idea as well as I imagined, when you finally think you've hit on the story idea and characters who should sparkle and all of that, and then you just, some insecurities or some sad writing will, in the draft part when you're tired and you're just like, oh my God, I can't do it. And that I usually get that paralysis every book. At some point in the book, I feel very much like, oh God, this is not what I thought it was going to be. My favorite part is at the end, unlike in real life, when I said this earlier in the day, literally my favorite thing about writing a story is because I write stories that are really try to be very realistic and deal with things that aren't always so pretty. What I like about writing is that I can have the characters say what I want them to say, and it gets the result that in real life I would want to have happen. Whereas in my real life, sometimes I say what I want to say, but you can't always predict the response or the whatever. And I like in a story that it ends the way I think it should. So that's my favorite part. Okay. Control freak, yeah.
I'm just gonna say it before you tell it. We have this amazing horror book, and they talk about the comfort of reading and writing horror because it's kind of scary, right? But they felt very comfortable. They could see it on the page and they feel, and they could go through conflicts in a way that was safe for them. It sounds really similar. Yeah.
For me, the best is when you're starting a new project, especially if it's like the first in a series where you're building a whole new world and like everything is open and every possibility is still out there. You're collecting things. For me, somebody asked, like, especially one of the earlier panels about research, and it's like, yeah, research is the fun part because it means you can, whatever you're interested in at the moment, you can go and just study it. I'm putting it in a book. That's why I'm doing this. And so it's very rewarding that way. Intellectually, it's like putting two things on. I was really interested in it. So I really, that's like one for me really fun. And I haven't really had a chance to screw it up. And it's like all still really, I think, the worst part was, I think for me, one of the worst parts is when a book doesn't really succeed in some way. I love all my books. Some of them have been harder to write than others, but in the end, I'm always pleased with how they come out. And sometimes just through random bad luck, like the book doesn't do that well. And that's kind of hard, You're like, well, why did nobody read this book? And, sometimes like I had a couple books that were released in the heart of the last the financial crisis, and bookstores really took it on the chin, and the consumers took it on the chin. And so, like, those were some of the books that I was still a relatively new writer then. But I love those books. These books were like everything that I liked because I didn't know, about the things that you weren't supposed to do or whatever. It was just like everything I liked. And they come out in like 2009, 2008, and just like disappeared. So, like, I think that to me is kind of hard because actually I'm wrong about the best thing. The best thing in writing is when you have, and somebody sends you an email and says, I love this book. It got me through a hard time. It made me laugh. It brightened my day. Like, I learned something, whatever it is, whatever it touched in that reader, like, that's really, for me, the absolute best part. I could take a day from like total everything sucks, I'm terrible, I'm quitting, I'm just, not fit to do this. And suddenly you feel like, one person, and, it seems kind of silly, but that's true. Like writing is a very solitary thing. You're alone. I don't know. Some people have like beta readers and editors and all kinds of people reading their books, reading them as they work and giving them feedback. Like, I don't do that. So finish the book and then send it out first time. So anyway, to all readers, you are really amazing. You are so important to us, and every little thing you say to an author, just posting on their Facebook page, even, I love this book. That means so much to all of us. So thank you.
I've written some of those emails too.
And that's why we're going to
And you get paid for this. So I find it really fascinating. We're actually about out of time. I wanted to comment. Nick, this is your second book. Megan, how many books do you have out?
20 some odd, I guess.
Jamie? I think she's 8 books. Oh, those are right. But I think it's amazing that even though you have so many books out and have had, some stuff, it looks like to you that you still have those moments where you're like, oh, sorry, I can't do this anymore.
I think it gets harder.
Really?
The more you write, because you're more aware of, sorry. You know more what you're doing and you're more aware of it. It's less of well, for me, I write a lot with my head. And, but my super ego is, kind of observing, and that's not good. Anyway, but since you know so much more, it becomes, you box yourself in even more, I think, and you get so much more aware of like, oh, so-and-so already did that, or I already did that. How many fake engagements can I have? Apparently all of them. I have all the fake engagements. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you on this panel. I had another thought and I thought I was keeping it. And we're out of time. So you're so inspiring, and I hope you all do get their books and read their books and send awesome emails. And if you don't, okay. But yeah, I agree. Like as a reader, I love telling people, authors, how much I love their books because you respond. And I don't feel like such a stalker. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And for you all, we're still signing books up until 3 o'clock. So come on upstairs and make signatures. Thank you.
Now you can-